Central America includes the republics of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, and Belize. Central America...
Everywhere in Mexico, such as here, at the National University, where this library building is only one of many decorated with gigantic murals, mosaics, and sculptures. The university today accommodates over 250,000 students and, as it was begun over 400 years ago, is the oldest university in the New World. The university is literally covered with giant-sized murals depicting the drama, the struggle, and the passion of human existence. You see, in Mexico City, we try to do everything in a big way. To be the first, the most, the best. We try to do everything larger than life. Here in our city, you will find the Torre Latino, the tallest building in all of Latin America. And right in front of it, the 500-year-old Alameda Park, which was once the scene of public... Charros. Charros are our traditional Mexican cowboys. The charros, these romantic figures are much admired everywhere in Mexico. To us, these majestic horsemen embody the combined ideals of bravery, horsemanship, and chivalry. Much more than a tradition, in the charro we touch not what we once were, but what we actually are today. Even the art of leatherworking developed on the great cattle ranches by the cowboys themselves generations ago is today a big business in Mexico. This craft is passed down in families from father to son. But the design, no. The designs are the original work of each artisan, his own flamboyant statement, born of his need to create, to see, and to touch beauty. Look there at Miguel's large, muscular fingers. It seems to me that his fingers see his work better than his eyes. Hidalgo's famous Grito de Dolores was Mexico's Declaration of Independence in 1810. And every year on September 15, the President of Mexico steps out on the main balcony of the presidential palace on the Zócalo and amid fireworks and cheering repeats the famous Grito de Dolores, setting off our Independence Day celebration. It's fantastic to be in the main plaza on this night. The government buildings on the four sides of the Zócalo are brilliantly lit. The happy cheering crowds are packed in on all sides. And fireworks falling everywhere, on everybody. And it's an experience of a lifetime just to be there. The next day, the celebration continues with a parade which begins in the Zócalo and passes by the great cathedral. There is a Zócalo, or main square, in practically every town in Mexico, fronted on one side by a cathedral and on the other side usually by government buildings. In the smaller town, it is used for band concerts, promenading, and flirting. But here in Mexico City, it is used for military parades and grand national events. And there goes the bell, all the way over, signaling the festivities have come to an end. The old and the new stand side by side wherever you go in Mexico City. The Spanish church near some modern apartment houses is built right on top of an Aztec sacrificial temple. And as night falls over the city of 20 million inhabitants, the entire city becomes a lake again. A lake of shimmering lights, lights of every color and description. For in Mexico, neon never went out of style. We have always treated it as if it were one of the fine arts. Carta Blanca. Prefiero Pepsi Cola. Tome Coca-Cola. Signo de buen gusto. And here, look at this one. Cerveza Carta Blanca. Look, here's a nightclub. I bet this isn't what you expected to see inside. But remember, in Mexico, our history is always a part of our present, and the old Aztec dances and costumes often form a part of nightclub habits, school presentations, or weekend celebrations. But we're better to touch our history than in the Anthropological Museum where the Aztec calendar is on display. It uses a form of telling time more accurate than our modern calendars. And here is the Aztec sacrificial stone on this altar to celebrate a victory. At one time, over 80,000 people were sacrificed. The cross you see there was for the blood to run out. And here is the obsidian knife with which they tore out the hearts of their victims. The Aztecs, indeed, had an impressive civilization. But to my way of thinking, they played pretty rough. Here is their king's headdress. And here is a giant statue of the rain god, Tlaloc. When it was removed from its mountaintop 20 years ago to bring it to the museum here, it is said that Tlaloc became very angry, for it rained for 6 days and 6 nights. This Mayan courtship dance doesn't seem particularly impressive at first glance. But when you realize the lady is dancing with a filled goblet of wine balanced precariously on a saucer on top of her head, then it becomes very impressive indeed. Today, the capital of the Yucatan is Mérida. It is a beautiful colonial city with much that reminds us of old Spain. Look there. Those are the taxis of Mérida. And this is not a creation for the tourists. For Mérida has changed very little in the past hundreds of years. And until recently, it was completely cut off from the rest of Mexico by the jungles and mountains that form an impenetrable barrier. Unlike most small towns in Mexico, the Catholic priest or padre is as much respected and loved member of the community. Here, one of the town people has just returned from his training to be a priest. And of course, in a town with all these churches, he's a very important man. So everybody turns out to honor him, to bring him flowers, and to make speeches. Even though the people of the small towns may be poor, they always seem able, using just the flowers and simple materials at hand, to make an occasion elegant and meaningful. And now, to help celebrate the new priest's return, a fair has come to Cholula. Of course, there is the Ferris wheel, the merry-go-round, and the rides you would expect from any fair anywhere. Then too, there is the cotton candy, the crowds, and the children you'd come to expect. However, there is one thing different about this fair. For traveling with this fair are the Totenacos, the Totonac Indians who are going to perform the ritual of the voladores, or the flight. After killing and burying a chicken, and then having 2 good shots of tequila, they climb up a 90-foot pole that has been placed in the ground using a rope that has been strapped around the pole to serve as stairs. At the top they prepare themselves, but what they are about to do requires a great deal of courage. Then, at the correct moment, the flying voladores lean back and begin to descend in this unusual manner, each man dangling by his feet, tied to a rope, while the man on top accompanies them by playing his flute. Each man symbolizes one of the sacred birds that guard the corner of the compass, as recognized by the Totonac Indians. As they fly about on their descent, they revolve 13 times. 4 times 13 is 52, symbolizing the 52 years of the Totonac Indian century. This is obviously a very dangerous ritual, for voladores have been killed performing this many times.
Just outside Mexico City, the lagoons of Xochimilco provide the perfect spot for a fiesta, where one can enjoy an afternoon in an atmosphere of color and music. Each painstakingly decorated boat is a unique contribution to and expression of the diversity of the cultural heritage that is Mexico. These boats, gliding over the tiny remnant of the Great Lake that once surrounded the capital, recall the flower and feather art of the ancient Aztecs. But whether the particular custom is Spanish or Indian in origin, the spirit of the fiesta is completely Mexican. As far back in time as history and archaeology can take us, music, color, and festivity have been an important part of Mexican life. A mosaic of high cultures existed centuries before the arrival of the Spanish. The Olmec culture, which flourished on the Gulf Coast before 500 BC, is commonly seen as a seminal culture in Mexican history. The abundant yield of maize made it possible for the farmers to support a large class of artisans, priests and warriors, and gave the peasants time to haul great quantities of stone at a time when there were no draft animals or wheels. Thus maize was both a benefactor and a harsh taskmaster. For dependence on cultivation required that man placate the stern gods who gave and withheld rain and harvest. The women made tortillas for their new masters, and commerce soon returned to the city of Mexico, where Cortez ruled as hero to the Indians, whom he had freed from the Aztecs. Spaniards flocked in to seek their fortune and to enjoy the fruits of a rich land. The most adventurous conquistadors recruited armies among the Indians and set forth in all directions, seeking to duplicate Cortez's achievements. Nations which had preserved their independence from the Aztecs fell before the determined conquistadors and accepted new masters. Spanish rule quickly spread throughout the Central Plateau, traditionally dominated by Mexico, into the tropic lowlands of Yucatan, and across the western mountains to the Pacific and the great northern deserts. New Spain was born. But Indian Mexico did not die. The rugged terrain hampered the influence of the Spanish, who were few in number and content in most cases simply to enjoy the benefits of rulership. Everyday life continued almost unchanged in many areas. Spanish men soon were attracted to the beautiful Indian women and had children of Indian mothers. These children were the first mestizos, a mixture of European and Indian. Spanish colonial law was very race-conscious, devising over 100 categories of racial mixture. But the Mexican people themselves mixed easily. Today, 2/3 are mestizos. One of the great themes of Mexico is this gradual synthesis of Indian and Spanish heritage into a Mexican nationality. In some areas, this change was slow and peaceful, while in others, the impact of the conquest was extremely harsh. Where gold could be mined, metropolitan area, over 10 million people. Already the water table is so low that the lake that once surrounded the city is almost gone. With a rate of population increase for Mexico as a whole of over 3% a year, the capital will be home to more than 30 million at the turn of the century. Such rapid growth is a challenge to the leaders of Mexico. The art of Mexico is a metaphor and an instrument of its nationalism. The richness of everyday art, seen in the market, is a great inheritance from the Indian past and reflects the natural talent and vitality of the Mexican spirit. The color and life of popular art can be seen in the mural. As a means of propaganda and education, many murals have illustrated themes from Mexican history. But more recently, public art makes a subtler assertion of its nationalism. A high government priority is education, but the birth rate threatens to outrun the system's capacity. Education is free and theoretically compulsory, but even though Mexico spends over a quarter of its national budget for education, 4/5 of those eligible do not complete the 6th grade. Only in the 1920s did the government try seriously to rebuild the elementary education system, crippled when the reform of 1857 outlawed religious schools. The university, founded in the capital in 1551, survived secularization and flourished after the Revolution. Today, 250,000 students attend its classes. For the first time in its history, Mexico is feeling the influence of large numbers of highly educated technicians and intellectuals who are native Mexicans. Education is free or very inexpensive for university students, who repay some of their debts by entertaining their fellows. And the redistribution of lands helped the peasants. Only the richest farmers can afford machinery, and most work in the fields by the same back-breaking methods as their ancestors. Factories offer easier, better paid work, and only half of Mexicans still live in the countryside. It is ironic that farmers should find life hard in one of the most agriculturally abundant lands of the world. The soil of Mexico yields temperate and tropical crops in great variety. Food is plentiful enough to export to the United States and Canada. Yet few farmers can afford the goods offered in markets such as these, to say nothing of the products of an industrial society. Alongside the tremendous tasks before the nation in educating and providing for its growing population is a vast resource, petroleum. Oil has been pumped from Mexico since before the revolution, but only in the last decade have explorations revealed oil reserves rivaling those of Saudi Arabia.
Anything drastic. Just wait this out and the whole thing will just blow over.
Tried to starve the city into submission with its warships. Jefferson helped persuade his fellow Burgesses to declare a day of prayer and fasting to show Virginia's solidarity.